Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor of ClassicsToday.com, here with a few more examples of inappropriate music. Really inappropriate music. Music that was just wrong for the occasion. But first I have to say, one of you sent me a little comment. I just love your comments. I really do. Even the ones I delete, I love, because some of them are just fascinating and give me such insight into people's characters and personalities. And one of you, I will not say who, said, "Oh, I liked your other Tam Tam better because the UFIP logo," there it is, the UFIP logo, because it comes from Italy, pokes up from behind my bald head. I don't know, I got to look at the angle. How do I do this? Maybe like that. And winds up looking like the horns on Michelangelo's Moses. Now, I find that extremely flattering. Of course, Michelangelo's Moses has a much better beard than I do, and he's not bald, but he does have these horns poking up from behind his head. And so I suppose Michelangelo was Italian. UFIP is Italian. What can I tell you? I like this Tam Tam. It's going to stick around for a while, and then I'll switch it out for another one. Don't worry. I have a couple of dozen to choose from, so it'll be an ongoing thing. I just think once in a while we could use a change of scenery, at least set design. You know what I mean? Oop, there it went. I think that's very funny. But thank you for that comment. It really kind of made my day. Now, let's talk about inappropriate music. I have 3 examples of inappropriate music, 2 of which I'm going to play you. And they somewhat come, 2 of them at least, come from actual stories of my life. The first one, this is a true story, and I have to tell you about it. Can't play you a sample, but you can find it on YouTube. You'll get the picture. It's no big deal. What is the absolute most inappropriate musical gift you can give a nun? You might think it's something, hopelessly vulgar or sexually repulsive or something like that. But it's not any of those things. It is a ticket to the opera Dialogues of the Carmelites, which is about nuns. But what you don't know, or what a lot of people don't know when they thought about giving Sister Rosemary a ticket to the Met, is the fact that at the end of the opera, the nuns all get beheaded. The entire convent, one by one, they go singing to their doom to a gorgeous, I mean an absolutely gorgeous setting of the Salve Regina. I mean, Poulenc really, really knew how to milk it for all it was worth. You know what I mean? The sensuality of the music is completely at odds with the horror of what's actually happening. And I went to see a performance of Dialogues of the Carmelites at the Met. I love the opera. It's an astonishingly fabulous opera. I actually have seen it like a dozen or 2 times at the Met because I just kept going, because I think it's one of the most perfect marriages of words and music in the entire world. It really is. Anyway, it's a great opera, and you always find a bunch of nuns there. Lots of them. They tend to show up for it. But some of them know what it's about and are deeply moved by the experience, and others don't. And it becomes an emotionally harrowing roller coaster. And at this point, this particular performance, there was a small group of nuns, all in habits, formal, serious, like real, authentic nuns. And they were all there. And I don't mean like men dressed as nuns, which you might also find at the Metropolitan Opera House. I mean real, authentic nun-like nuns. And they were watching the opera, and when it was over, I brought my sister. My sister and I were both there. We were watching the whole thing. And as we were leaving, they were so overwrought. One of them had to be carried out, literally. She was completely, totally hysterical and incapable. I mean, she was in shock. She couldn't move. And her sisters were sort of holding her up and dragging her out of the Met, with her legs kind of trailing behind her. She was tears streaming down her face. It was very moving. I'm not making fun of them. I'm not in the least, not the teeniest bit. It was an amazing tribute to the power of Poulenc's music. And you can only imagine that somebody who is actually in the holy orders watching this would be absolutely transfixed by it and incredibly moved. But really, friends, I mean, if you've got a family friend who's a nun, and you want to give them a gift, I just had this vision of what happened. It's like, oh, let's give it to Sister Rosemary. Let's give her a ticket. Hi, Sister Rosemary. We got you a ticket to the opera for your birthday. It's about nuns. Go see the opera about nuns, with not a word about what actually happens to those nuns. And Poulenc really gets you involved with what happens to those nuns. And at the end, everybody should be in tears. It's unbelievably gripping. But, I mean, you really should have planned a little better and given her a chance to prepare for the shock value of the thing. It really is the most inappropriate gift you can give your friend who is a nun, unprepared, unless she's a classical music freak who really knows her Poulenc and knows opera. But as a special treat for someone who otherwise is not familiar with opera, well, that's another story altogether. Anyway, so that's one. Number two is a little bit of background history in my life. One of the things I have always tried to do in my career is bring classical music into people's lives, but serious music, real music, not just, fluff or, the same five pieces, but to expand the repertoire and show people that classical music has a natural place. And one of the things I wanted to do was do figure skating routines. And I've mentioned this before, and I did. For several years, I produced and created classical music skating routines for, Olympic and sub-Olympic for competitive skaters. And my greatest triumph was getting one of them to dance to my 3-minute version of the second movement of Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique, because it's a waltz. It's wonderful, and it's beautiful and sensual and succulent, and it's lots of fun. And it worked really well, I have to say. She did quite well with it, and I was very, very proud. But there are some pieces. One of the problems with figure skating routines is, well, now they're even worse than they were. Back in the day, there were very, very strict requirements about you had to have at least 3 changes of mood, and you had to, and each one had to last a certain amount of time. It was very, very complicated. Nowadays, the routine itself is 4 minutes long, plus or minus 10 seconds. And you can pick anything you want. You can pick film music, which most of them do, or popular songs. I mean, you can do anything you want to do. In those days, you could not. And so it was much more limited. And they all wanted the same things. It was either Swan Lake, or like the Nutcracker, or the 18th variation from Rachmaninoff's Paganini Rhapsody, with a quick introduction and a little bit of the rest of it to end it. That's what they danced to. It had to be Russian. The reason it had to be Russian, except for the year in the Olympics when you had the 2 skaters who did Carmen. Remember, they had the competing Carmens, but was it Katerina Witt and the other one, the American one? I don't remember. But the bottom line is, they were mostly Russian because, in addition to a technical skating coach, they also had a choreographer. And the choreographer was always, Madame Chikaboomskaya. I mean, it was this really sort of washed up, arrogant Russian ex-Bolshoi comprimaria ballerina. And she would show up. I mean, I met a bunch of these people. Trust me, I am not making them up. In their incredibly politically incorrect fur coat and fur hat. I mean, wearing more dead animals than you've ever seen in, a drive through Montana, counting the roadkill on the way. I mean, you just fur everywhere. And they would show up, and they were the ones who helped pick the music, and they only knew Tchaikovsky, two pieces by Tchaikovsky, and maybe Rachmaninoff if they were going outside of their comfort zone, because after all, Rachmaninoff wrote no ballets. So, I mean, there's the women's dance from Aleko, you know what I mean, but basically, no ballets. So it was very, very hard to get these young skaters, these young women principally, to use other pieces of music, because first of all, they had no time for it. They were skating from like 5 a.m. to midnight every day. And it was usually their parents I was dealing with, which was a whole nother story. And the way I would do it is, I made my clips. I made about 300 skating routines. I still have them. They're sitting on CDs somewhere in Connecticut. And they really, I mean, I did the 2.5 minute Emperor Concerto. I mean, I cut everything, I cut and pasted and glued, but I always tried to respect the musical phrase, because the way these things were edited and parceled out, the way I saw them on TV just made me cringe. And so I thought, if they do real music, it'll be wonderful. And the interesting thing is, I tried my damnedest for the long routine, the 4-minute routine, to find pieces which were exactly 4 minutes long, plus or minus 10 seconds, because then I didn't have to do any editing at all. And it allowed the long line to develop character and contrast. And there are pieces that work, quite a few, in fact. And one of the ones I really wanted to see them do was Medea. Specifically, Barber's Medea's Dance of Vengeance. And I wanted to see him do it because, well, they all do these stupid little fairy princess, it's so annoying. It's so cutesy, and they wear the sparkly little outfits, and they zip around in them. And I said, no. You are going to do Medea. You are going to murder your own children and drive off in a chariot pulled by dragons. That's what you're going to do, honey. Well, nobody went for Medea. I hate to tell you, it was a complete failure. It totally didn't work. It was wholly inappropriate. No little skater, young adolescent or teenage skater wanted to be known as the child-murdering, vengeful Medea. And I thought that was such a pity, because this was such an opportunity to expand the range of the sport. And I was stupid. I mean, I never realized they didn't want to expand the range of the sport. They wanted to land a triple axel. They didn't give a damn whether the emotional intensity of the music was being conveyed in their dancing. I mean, in their skating, I mean, they did up to a point, but, they had other things on their mind. Let's put it that way. But I sent this clip to everybody saying, come on, do Medea, in the forlorn hope that one of them would be quirky enough and original enough to really attempt it, because I think it would have been a smash. I think it would have been just amazing. It certainly would have been different. It would have gotten attention. And so I'm going to play you the bit of Medea that I arranged, Medea's Dance of Vengeance. It's straight through. I leave out the meditation, the slow part at the beginning, which is much longer than the actual vengeance part. And I go straight to the opening of the vengeance part, which is kind of a rumba. It's da 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 da. It's great. It's just great. And the performance I used, which I can't play for you because I don't have permission, was Charles Munch and the Boston Symphony, which is the most insane, vicious performance of Medea. I mean, the music would just carry them along. How could they not want to be Medea? I don't understand it to this day. But here is still a very, very good performance with Maren Alsop and the Royal Scottish National Orchestra on Naxos as part of her complete Samuel Barber orchestral music box, which we've already talked about and which is superb. Medea's Dance of Vengeance, the ultimate 4 minutes of ice skating for a daring, unconventional skater willing to take a risk. Actually, none of them want to take a risk, certainly not of losing, because of their music choice. I guess I can't blame them. Here it is. stuff, isn't it? Can't you just see the insane sort of pirouette spinny thing that they all do at the end? The leaps, the jumps, that incredibly intense climax when the music of the meditation comes back, incredible tragedy, and oh God, it's just wonderful. I can just see it being, I mean, it's a ballet, for heaven's sake. It's danceable and skatable. But, nah, they're not going to do it. I tried. That's all I can tell you is I tried. Okay. Last but not least, we're talking about female activities here, whether they're nuns or figure skaters, and now we're talking about ballerinas. Let's just say that your daughter or sister or however is a young danseuse. She's always wanted to be a ballerina, and she decides she's a child. She's just in her little single digits still, or 10 or 11, and she finally gets to go to ballet class, and she just has a great time at her first ballet class, and she comes home, and you are her parent or her sister, brother, or other sister, or whoever you are, and you say, "Sweetie, how was your first ballet class?" And she says, "Oh, it was wonderful. We're going to portray characters, and we dance and we become characters. And this is the one that they assigned me." And she holds up a little tape of the music that she's been given, and you put it on, and here it is. Yep, it's the dance of the seven veils. Just what you want for your first ballet recital when you're like 8. Right, people? If that is not the most totally, horrifyingly inappropriate piece of music to dance to, come to think of it, it would be a pretty inappropriate piece of music to skate to as well, wouldn't it? I can't think of another one. I just can't think of another one. I mean, Salome is in a class of her own. I mean, Lady Macbeth of Mtsensk is nothing compared to Salome. And you do get the dance of the seven veils, which is just phenomenal. I could have edited it together. I could make a skating or ballet routine out of it. But there's a piece even I would never, not even as a joke, would I send it to somebody, because I know all too well what would happen if I ever attempted. I'd probably get arrested. I mean, goodness gracious. But still, I just think as far as inappropriate music goes, for the first ballet recital of a young, just starting child ballerina, I think Salome's The Dance of the Seven Veils has to be the all-time most inappropriate piece of music that has ever existed. If you've got another one, I'm willing to see it. I'm willing to hear it. Give it a shot. Let me know. But I think I got this one pretty well wrapped up, don't you? So keep on listening, folks. Thanks for joining me. Take care.